We have all experienced moments where our own mind becomes our greatest enemy. Negative thoughts, constant doubts, and the fear of failure paralyze us. The feeling of not being enough, of not being able to achieve our goals, is a silent but constant battle. It starts with small doubts, and without noticing, it becomes an unbearable weight, making even the simplest steps difficult. The true struggle is not against the external world, but against what our mind creates, and often it is this that holds us back the most. Every attempt to step out of our comfort zone feels like a battlefield, where fear and insecurity are the greatest soldiers we face. There comes a moment when the mental pressure becomes so intense that it seems there is no way out. The protagonist, tired of the daily struggle against themselves, is on the verge of giving up everything. The work that once seemed promising now becomes a constant source of frustration. The dream project, once so possible, becomes an unbearable burden. In times like these, negative thoughts grow stronger and convince that the best course of action is simply to give up. The idea of continuing the struggle seems futile as the mind becomes so consumed by doubts that it's hard to see any other possibility. But it is in this moment of crisis, when everything seems lost, that the awakening occurs. Something inside the protagonist begins to shift. They find inspiration, whether through a mentor's words, a revealing book, or a deep personal experience. They realize that the greatest obstacle is not in external circumstances, but in the limitations they themselves imposed on their minds. The key to becoming unbreakable lies in understanding that the human mind has an extraordinary power for transformation. The real challenge is learning to control this power, using the mind not as a prison, but as a tool for growth and strength. The awakening is in realizing that change starts from within. When the protagonist begins to realize the true power of the mind, they face a new challenge, the limiting beliefs that have kept them trapped for so long. These beliefs are like invisible chains that prevent them from reaching their full potential. I am not good enough. I don't deserve success. I am not capable of changing. These voices, often from the past, are fueled by negative experiences, failures, and comparisons with others. As they begin to identify these beliefs as false and irrational, the protagonist realizes how much they had been bound by them without even realizing it. The real work starts when they decide to question these beliefs, confront them head-on, and slowly break free from them. After identifying their limiting beliefs, the protagonist dedicates themselves to a new process, strengthening their mental resilience. They begin practicing self-control, confronting their fears head-on, and actively seeking ways to turn negativity into something productive. Meditation, visualization, and breath control become crucial tools on this journey. The idea is that the mind must be trained, just like the body. In the beginning, it is difficult, and the results are not immediate. The mind continues to resist, but each small victory over negative thoughts represents a gradual building of mental strength. With each step, the protagonist feels more prepared to face the challenges ahead, and a sense of confidence starts to grow. They discover that true change begins with how they choose to react to obstacles, and that mental resilience is the secret to turning challenges into opportunities. The path to becoming unbreakable is not easy. At every stage of the journey, the protagonist faces obstacles that seem almost impossible to overcome. However, they begin to understand that each internal barrier, every moment of failure, is actually an opportunity to grow. They learn to see adversity as a teacher, not an enemy. Each time they face a challenge head-on, they become stronger. Failure stops being something to fear and turns into a learning tool, a chance to restart in a smarter, stronger way. Over time, the protagonist develops a new mindset. They know there are no limits to what they can achieve as long as they continue to fight, learn, and grow. They become someone who, no matter what happens, will never let themselves be broken again. When the protagonist begins to internalize the idea that the mind has the power to shape reality, their perspective of the world changes radically. They no longer see obstacles as insurmountable barriers, but as opportunities disguised as challenges. The confidence that once seemed distant now becomes a part of their being. They begin to realize that everything they need to achieve their goals is already within them. All that's left is to use their mind strategically. The real secret lies in believing in their own capacity for adaptation and growth, regardless of external circumstances. The protagonist understands that when the mind is trained to be unbreakable, it can turn any difficulty into an advantage. As the protagonist continues to develop their unbreakable mindset, they begin to realize that true strength doesn't come only from individual resilience, but also from the ability to positively influence those around them. They learn that their mental strength can multiply by sharing their vision and motivating others to transform their own minds. When they begin to help those around them, whether at work, in relationships, or in other aspects of life, they realize that their own journey becomes even more powerful. The unbreakable mindset is not just an individual state. It can be contagious. By empowering others, the protagonist finds a new depth of purpose and strength. They know that together challenges become easier to face, and collective strength can overcome any obstacle. At the climax of their journey, the protagonist faces a final challenge that will test everything they've learned about themselves and the power of their mind. This moment is not just an external battle, but an internal struggle to solidify everything they've achieved so far. They face an extreme situation, something that seems impossible to overcome. But now, with their mind trained and strong, they confront adversity head-on, without hesitation. They use everything they've learned: resilience, mental control, confidence, and above all, the unwavering belief that nothing is impossible. This moment is the fireproof test of the unbreakable mind, a test that once overcome, confirms to the protagonist that they have finally become unbreakable. After overcoming the difficulties and achieving an unbreakable mind, the protagonist arrives at a moment of deep reflection. They look back and see the entire path they have walked, the moments of pain, the falls, the defeats, but also the victories and the lessons learned. They realize that in the end, the true journey was not about achieving a specific goal, but about the internal transformation they underwent. Life is not defined by external achievements, but by personal growth and continuous evolution. The unbreakable mind is not a destination, but an ongoing process of self-improvement. The protagonist understands that their journey is just the beginning of a new life, where true strength lies in how they face each future challenge. As the protagonist looks to the future, they realize that the greatest legacy they can leave is not their achievements or material possessions, but the ability to inspire others to become unbreakable as well. They know that everyone has the potential to change their own lives. They just need to understand the power that lies within each of them. The protagonist commits to sharing their story and lessons, helping others awaken to the strength they possess. True impact is not measured by trophies or titles, but by the lives they can transform, by the example of resilience they leave behind. They now understand that by sharing their unbreakable mindset, they create a chain of transformation, where each person who becomes stronger goes on to impact another, creating a legacy that perpetuates. The protagonist finally understands that transformation is not something that happens just once, but is an ongoing cycle. They now see challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow even stronger. Every new challenge that arises in their life is faced with confidence and the certainty that they have the tools needed to overcome any adversity. The unbreakable mindset doesn't mean the absence of difficulties, but the ability to face them with courage, determination, and wisdom. With this new perspective, the protagonist knows the future is bright, and that with their unbreakable mind, there are no limits to what they can achieve.